In 1973, Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham released their first and only album together, a record that went largely unnoticed at the time, but quietly shaped the future of Fleetwood Mac. In this episode, we're diving into the story of this overlooked gem and the sparks of greatness it carried into the Mac. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing good, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. An album I never thought we would do an episode about.
Right? Yeah.
You know,
it's kind of a chess.
Obscure, right? Yeah. Very obscure.
All I could say is that it's about fucking time.
Yes, we can say that, and for a lot of reasons. It's about time. You know, it's about time we do it. You know, it's and there's a reason we're able to do it now as well. So we'll get into that a little bit. Why are we doing the Buckingham Nicks solo album when we just recently did the Mirage album? And actually, Mirage has a little thread that goes all the way back to this album as well. So there's a callback there. So it actually works out well. But the reason why we're doing this episode is because it is getting a re-release. So as of the publishing of this episode, it probably is about a week or so away, or maybe it's come out already. I'm not sure when we're going to do it. We're certainly recording it before the release of the album, but that doesn't make a difference because the album was out already.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't ever out
not digitally.
For lack of, you know, even initially, the Polydor, the label they were on, basically deleted the album almost as soon as it came out. They literally like put it out of print. Okay. So whatever was out in the pipeline was there, but there was nothing about it. So we're going to get into that, but that's, you know, so we're really talking about an album that essentially for a lot of people will be a new release. And like Eric said, digitally, it's never been on compact disc ever, unless the copy that I burned for myself from files.
Bootlegs, yeah. Yep.
But other than that, so here we go. So let's talk about the album is by Nicks and Buckingham, and it's called Buckingham Nicks. It was released initially in September of 1973. Re-released, I'm not going to say remastered. This is literally a re-release in its truest form. You know, again, an album that was never available after its initial run and was deleted. Polydor never tried to capitalize on this, I find that very strange. Like when Fleetwood Mac took off, I'm surprised Polydor didn't release this and say, "Oh, before that, you know, like that would have been their." But they just like, the hell with it. We're not, you know, we're done. So anyway, it was re-released in September 2025, produced by Keith Olsen, a man, a name that will figure prominently it figures prominently in Fleetwood Mac. It certainly does. And on Billboard, this album didn't chart.
Yeah.
At all.
It doesn't look like it was critically a critical darling either. In some for the movie, like Rolling Stone gave it a couple of stars, if that. But
that's what they said about it, and it was probably kind of run of the mill for 1973. I mean, you know, so yeah. As much as we're going to talk about this album, I think we also need to, you know, the story of them joining Fleetwood Mac, which we have talked about, but we'll go maybe a little bit deeper. Literally plays into the success. This is a stroke of luck. This is like a few things happening at different times that all eventually end up lining up. So, but before we get into it, if it's your first time catching this episode, checking out 3324 podcast, if you're here for the Fleetwood Mac stuff, there's a bunch of Fleetwood Mac you could check out. You know, we've got we're doing their albums. We did a tribute to Christine McVie. We did Lindsey Buckingham's solo album. So there's a lot of Mac adjacent material out there. There's Beach Boys stuff as well. So go ahead and check all that stuff out, and then just go ahead and follow us. And this way you get notified when new stuff comes out, and then you can decide if you want to check that out or see what else we got. We have movie episodes as well. So there's something here for everybody. So that's the advertisement for this episode. I didn't do it right away. See, I waited 5 minutes in. You kind of
change it up.
Talk. They're talking about the album right away. That's kind of cool. Now I threw in there.
Now I'm gonna
gotcha, sucker.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
all right.
So this was released. So we'll go in. We'll do. Let me talk about that part first, and then we're going to talk about our interaction with it. That's curious as well. So this was released in September of 1973. So Lindsey Buckingham, back in the 60s, he went to high school with Stevie Nicks. She was a year older. So they knew each other, and they had kind of, in the 60s, had kind of sung together at some function, like very off the cuff, not anything, professional or even taking it to the next step. And then Lindsey Buckingham joins a group called Fritz. 2 years later, contact Stevie Nicks and say, "Hey, you want to join this band?" And they, Fritz, if you read it, they were opening for Janis Joplin. They were opening for Jefferson Airplane. They were kind of like I guess what it is kind of like when bands come into town, you get like the local band to open. This was before like you had big headliners. So they were probably like in the LA area, like, oh, here, use these guys. You can, when you swing into town, here's your opener, use Fritz. They didn't really do much of anything. They had management, obviously, because they were doing this, but didn't really record anything. So someone from a label or management company comes to see them, or the manager of Fritz says to Lindsey Buckingham, said, "You and Stevie Nicks should go cut some demos without these other guys." So this guy had seen something in these two members in particular. Obviously, there were a couple at the time, but he's like, "You guys need to do some demos together and work that up." And they do, and lo and behold, they get signed to Polydor Records.
Okay.
Polydor is a pretty big name, not bad. And so they start to record this album. And they recorded the demo at Sound City.
Yeah,
right.
Famous studio.
Yeah, which I think Keith Olsen was he was a partner in something else, but he was involved with Sound City because I think he used the money that he got from the Buckingham Nicks in the advance or whatever to buy a Neve console. Like that was his pride and joy. And the very first song
he was one of the resident producers there.
Yeah. I think Frozen Love or one of the songs off this album was the first song to be recorded on the console.
Yeah.
Like that was that was the new toy. That was the toy at the time.
Yeah.
That you had to have. So, so they do that. While they're doing that, Stevie Nicks was kind of working retail jobs in order for Lindsey Buckingham to not work. So he can work on his guitar technique and kind of develop that. Because he was playing bass.
Yeah.
So they, kind of so she was out there working 2-3 jobs, really kind of hustling.
Cleaning houses.
Yeah. Cleaning
houses that she was just made. Yeah.
Doing all the stuff that you hear struggling artists do. So Lindsey could be at home and kind of really just, refine his craft, his guitar work, which, was a smart move. May not have been fun for Stevie Nicks at the time, but it was a very smart move because, we get what we get here.
I'm curious, when they were in Fritz, were they already writing songs or were they just basically a cover band?
There was no original Nicks and Buckingham material that was ever played.
Okay.
So I don't know if that means that other members were the dominant songwriters or that they were a cover band, but no material was ever forthcoming from them in Fritz. So that kind of says to me more of a cover band.
Yeah, probably.
Why, if they were doing all these opening gigs, why didn't they have a recording contract if they were
true? Yeah. But then there's that whole thing about while recording Buckingham Nicks, they apparently wrote many more songs. Like there's a whole slew of songs that were supposed to be, I guess, on the album. I think there's like somebody said that there was a South Korean import.
Yeah, like an additional 12 songs or so.
Yeah, there was like a dish. Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff. I think it was also the anticipated second album.
Okay.
I think Buckingham had said in an interview, he was like, we had like the stuff that ended up on the first Fleetwood Mac album, like, like Blue Letter, which is a cover, and Rhiannon, and some of the other stuff. Monday Morning, I think that they said this was already, we had it, in the anticipation of the second album that they ended up getting.
As he's famous for doing, Lindsey, right? He's always coming up. Songs are already written; they're already
ready to rock and roll.
Sometimes in the can already, like ready to go. And then before they even think of making an album, so they're
Stevie Nicks as well had a bunch of songs, and we just talked about it on the Mirage episode. The song "That's All Right."
Yeah.
Yeah. Stevie Nicks, that goes all the way back to Buckingham Nicks era. I have a copy of her original Buckingham Nicks demo for that. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the song "Eyes of the World" also is the instrumental Stephanie that Buckingham wrote for Stevie Nicks on this album.
Yeah.
That riff he just wholesale took and transplanted and kind of reformed it into "Eyes of the World."
Okay.
So there are some callbacks,
reoccurrences. Yep. And there's a song on that. What was it? Flash forward past early 2000s, right? There was that EP that they came out with. There was a song on there that had never been released before. That was written and recorded during those sessions. Yep.
Yeah, from the archives. So they had all this material just kind of laying around. And to your point, even back in the early 2000s, Lindsey Buckingham was like, I hope that we can come together and re-release this. This is the talk of a re-release has been at least 20 years in the making.
It's been going on for
Lindsey Buckingham and saying, so I don't know if it was a rights issue or a timing issue or just getting to it issue, whatever it was, because like I said, this album was deleted. Almost Stevie Nicks literally said, I couldn't even find it in the record store when it came out. Like at the time, she goes, I couldn't even find it. So, I had it on. Did you have it on? I had it on cassette.
You had the cassette, and I think I probably borrowed it from you. Maybe recorded it because on a double tape deck or whatever.
Now,
I might have made my own copy, but I never owned it until now.
Where would I get? Where do you think we would get a copy of an obscure cassette? Back in the day, where would we go to get something that was obscure or an import? Where were we going?
That was
in White Plains.
Yeah, what was the name of that place? Good Lord,
Harvey Sound.
Harvey Sound. That's right.
Remember, you go downstairs and they had
imports
and shit that we never even heard of, and it's like I didn't even know this was or compilation. I believe I got it there.
And the place was at the time had all the high tech equipment of the day.
It was a hi-fi,
latest and greatest. Yep.
They sold the records like down. You had to go downstairs for the records. It was kind of like a secondary thing. But and I do believe. I mean, obviously, because it was never reprinted, that was just a leftover, from the original run, right? Because there was never any represses or any ever reprints of the album or the cassette. So it was just whatever was out there, and I stumbled upon it. Right at the right time, right when I was getting into Fleetwood Mac, right? I was getting like binging Lindsey Buckingham. And then that fell into our laps and kind of.
Now, did you know about the album prior to you finding it?
Yes.
Were you aware of that it existed?
I was aware of it as a title.
Okay.
As a name, but not as anything. Although I did know, Don't Let Me Down Again was on Fleetwood Mac Live. That was part of Fleetwood Mac Live. So that was kind of like, oh, okay, that's that's what that is. Do you consider this album part of the Fleetwood Mac canon? Where does this exist for you? Does it exist as part, like as a part of it?
I think so. I mean, it it definitely has the, the direction and the flavor of where, like especially the first couple of albums, the White Album and Rumors, Lindsey with that, developing that sort of finger picking style and the whole like sort of, folky, very folky type of melody and all that stuff. I often found it to be something, though, sort of, coming off the late 60s, early 70s, where there was a lot of folk going on. And here was a little bit more injecting that sort of rock into it, sort of Americana type, rock, but also the heavy harmonies on the record, the double tracking of the vocals, things like that. I think we're trying to kind of fill in that, that, I guess, that gap of trying to be a little bit artsy, maybe a little premature there, I think, for what it was at the time.
Mature or ahead of the curve?
Well, it could be either.
Well, there's a difference, right? I mean, when you do listen to this album, you hear them harmonizing so well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That they had to have spent a lot of time on that. Like it sounds about as tight as you can get for like a debut album from a no-name, a no-name duo that, literally were plucked from obscurity out of a cover band, and then given a contract and to come correct like that.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to say ahead of the curve. Or Mick Fleetwood heard something right in there.
He had to,
which we'll get to. But he must have heard something besides the guitar playing, which was really what it was. That piqued his interest, because I'll tell you, in the beginning I said we're going to call this a re-release because this album. You have it on LP. I have it on LP. It does not need to be remastered. It sounds fantastic. It is a great sounding because it was done in Sound City, and this is an opportunity to talk about the supporting players on this album. Like, I don't know how Polydor spent the money to with the assemblage of talent.
Yeah, and got some notable players on this record,
and then didn't promote it. So you've got Buckingham and Nicks, right? And Buckingham pretty much plays guitar on this. He plays bass. He plays, a little bit of percussion. But you've got Waddy Wachtel, right, who became Stevie Nicks's go-to, literally her right hand on when she launches her solo career.
Right. Yep.
Waddy is the guy. Which led to a question. I thought about this today. Maybe you can answer this. Every time Buckingham left or got kicked out of Fleetwood Mac, why didn't they get Waddy Wachtel?
I don't know.
He can play the stuff that Lindsey can play. He doesn't have to sing. Just get yourself a singer now.
Right. Yeah.
But Waddy would be the natural, unless they were because the first time around, it's not like Rick Vito or, Rick Zito, whatever his name is, like those guys were named, it's not like they were named, names. It's not like, we're putting in celebrities. Like, if you had put in Waddy and gotten a vocalist, you could have, you would have been fine. Which is Waddy's always been there. He's always kind of there.
Yeah, but it's funny you mention it because I think I'm not quite sure about this, but I might have read somewhere that I think that they did have a falling out with him, like Lindsey and Waddy had a falling out, especially, and that's and Stevie.
That'd be an even better reason to stick it to Lindsey, right? I mean, if you're really looking to hurt the guy, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of what you do.
Which often happens, especially with these caliber of players, and we come to find out even now we're still learning about. We still don't know everything that went down in those days, So it's always something fresh. But that I might have read that somewhere that there was something going on, some kind of animosity going on with him.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I you're right. I mean, I saw Stevie Nicks several times solo, and he was always great. I mean, he was a solid guitar player. So
he's a studio-only musician because he plays with Stevie live. I mean, he's been playing with us since day one, pretty much.
Yeah.
So you got Waddy Wachtel on guitar. You have Jerry Sheff on bass.
Mm.
Okay, Jerry Sheff played on L.A. Woman by the Doors, but Jerry Sheff was also in Elvis's band. He was in the TCB band, most notably. Mark Tulin on bass guitar, don't really know. Peggy Sandvig on keyboards, Monty Stark, Jim Keltner on drums.
Keltner, yep.
Okay. Now, 73, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Keltner wasn't that big yet. But you know who was? Ronnie Tutt on drums also. Ronnie Tutt was Elvis's drummer on his concerts and in the studio. Fucking Ronnie Tutt and Jerry Sheff. You have Elvis's backers playing on this unknown duo. I don't get this. Like playing on this unknown duo's album, recorded in Sound City that sounds absolutely gorgeous. You know,
right? Yeah,
the songs are well arranged. There's depth to them. There's layers.
Yeah, there had to have been like
Polydor, like, you know, well, we're just, you know, whatever. We're not going to promote it. And it's I did a little experiment. So this came out in 73. So I went and listened to the last Fleetwood Mac album today. I kind of, skipped through it. The last Fleetwood Mac album that they released before they joined, which was Heroes Are Hard to Find, right? Which was the last Bob Welch album. And the differences couldn't be more staggering. The production differences on Heroes Are Hard to Find. That album is just horribly produced. It just doesn't sound good.
You're right.
You know, the horn. You know, the first song, "Heroes Are Hard to Find," has like these horns, and they're so forward in the mix when they blare that you can't hear Christine singing. You know, and it just sounds like shoddy. You know, like there's no like arrangement, and that was probably what Fleetwood Mac was. They were just kind of a band that played. You know, and there wasn't a lot of. It doesn't seem like there was a lot of thought. And when you listen to Buckingham Nicks, you hear the California sound. You know, if you listen to Frozen Love, it's like, what?
Yeah. It's an amazing song. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's as a homer, I'm going to say there's no filler, but there are songs that shine a lot brighter than other ones. So you've got all these people on here. You know, you got the who's who of LA session musicians. Elvis was still alive at the time. So Ronnie Tutt and Jerry Sheff were still like, when Elvis was touring, this is right around the time of the Aloha from Hawaii show that Elvis did. So these guys are like right there, like doing all that kind of stuff, you know, which is pretty amazing. You know, I would have been like starstruck walking in there. It's like, you know, like we're getting, you know, they got us these guys to play on our album.
Yeah.
You know, which I think just ups the sound, the professional factor of it.
Right.
You know, like this
veterans.
Veterans. And it's like I said, the album sounds great. So if you want to go on the hunt for an old vinyl, which now is the prices are, Eric and I got in on the bottom floor when it was.
Oh yeah. I think the store, I picked it up right away. As soon as I saw it, I was like, I said, is this an actual copy of this album? I asked the guy, or is this like some kind of weird bootleg pressing or something? He's like, no, it's the real deal. People are, you know.
Do you remember how much you paid?
I think I paid it. I had to have paid at least $20 for it.
Okay.
At least.
I think I paid $45.
Yeah.
And I was happy.
I'm pretty sure it was more than that, but I think it wasn't anything less than 20. Yeah.
I'm like, take my money.
Yeah.
Now it goes for 80, 100.
Right.
You know,
yep.
I don't know if that'll
you can even find it.
It's out there. It's on Discogs. People have it, but they're selling it for $100, $80. Yeah. You know, getting the value for it. So, you know, the sin of this album, right, is this album was destined for obscurity. This album was canceled, could not find it. And that's a tale probably that we don't hear a lot of, but happens probably more. Obviously, it happens more than the success stories. Is how many people are signed to labels? How many people get a contract? They make an album, and for one reason or another, either they suck, the production sucks, the label doesn't back it, whatever, and it never goes anywhere. There are, I dare say, thousands, but even more, maybe hundreds of thousands.
I'm sure
that have made an album on a major label too. Polydor is a major label, and these two got the short shrift. Like there was no promotion from the label. So this album just kind of, it didn't even come and go. It just kind of came and then just disappeared.
Yeah.
which made it even more like what I guess when I found it, it made it even more special because it was all like this. Back then it was like these are lost recordings because they didn't even play this on the radio. Like you didn't hear any of this stuff anywhere.
That's right.
Again, it's so very curious that even radio stations probably could have gotten the vinyl or had it and didn't try and like cash in on that. Like, you know,
especially the success of the first Fleetwood Mac album, which was no slouch by any means. I mean, you hit singles, right out the gate, so formidable songwriting on that record. I mean, it's just,
even Christine McVie said at the time, she goes, when they came on, I needed to up my game. She goes, I needed to like really focus on like songwriting and doing it. So again, the tale as old as time, but there's so many great musicians that have never seen the light of day, right? Because of one reason or another. Maybe the stars just don't align for them.
I dare say that I think the pin in this thing would be the Sound City plays a major role in the success of Lindsey and Stevie. I mean, I think Keith Olsen, I think, was playing the album or at least they probably had tapes of everything in at that studio, like acetates, and they were playing it. And I think that was the story, right? Mick Fleetwood was there for whatever reason.
I think before Bob Welch left, Fleetwood Mac, they were still living. They were living in England, like most of Fleetwood Mac, and Bob Welch was like, we gotta relocate to Los Angeles. This is where our label is. This is where all the action is. Like this is where everything is. This is where everything happens. Yeah. And Christine McVie was kind of like, I'm not really, not really, don't really want to, but they all did it. They all ended up coming to Los Angeles because they had just signed to Warner Reprise. So it's like, this is where all the business is conducted. We have to be here. So then someone said, if you're looking for a studio, you should go check out, Sound City, go check this thing out. And that was like 1974. Again, there was no thought about anything. And he goes in and he meets Keith Olsen, and Keith Olsen had just engineered and produced that album. So he's very proud of it, and again, Fleetwood was like, I just, here's how what we can provide to you. Here's how our studio is. And he played Frozen Love. Or Crying in the Night. I think it was Crying in the Night, right?
Yeah.
Was it? And that was it. And Mick Fleetwood listened to it and listened to the songs or whatever they played. And we just made a mental note. Yeah. Okay. That sounds great. Guitar sounds cool. Okay. Bye. Well, if we're going to use you, I guess we'll let you know. And then Bob Welch at the end of their tour, he kind of he leaves. He goes, I'm just had enough of this. And although he was probably the longest tenured Fleetwood Mac, it was their 9th lineup change in 8 years.
Yeah.
Bob Welch was still with Fleetwood Mac the longest, and everyone talks about Peter Green.
Yeah,
Bob Welch really was kind of holding the fort down, and kind of, he's got to get a little bit of credit for kind of starting to incorporate a little bit of California and American music, styling music into Fleetwood Mac. His stuff wasn't, if you listen to it, it was kind of still rudimentary. I'm sorry to say, it's good, but it's not there. And if you listen to Buckingham Nicks, right? I mean, it's like that stuff their stuff sounds less removed from Fleetwood Mac than Heroes Are Hard to Find. Heroes Are Hard to Find sounds like a different band. Yeah. And then we go to Fleetwood Mac. But when you listen to Buckingham Nicks, that sounds like the album before the white Fleetwood Mac album.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I'm saying? It has more in common with it. And I guess that really goes to the influence that these two had of going into Fleetwood Mac, and what they brought to it. But this album is just, I think it's a great showcase because, I'm not a big fan of Stevie Nicks, but her stuff on this is really great. I really like it.
It is. I always did. I always loved it.
Her voice had some sass to it also on this album. There's a little bit of hunger and a little bit of fire in her when she was younger, and really kind of, especially like something like Long Distance Winner. She's really, she's singing, and she doesn't really sing like, she kind of stopped singing like that.
She had a great voice.
Yeah.
When she was a lot younger. I mean, unfortunately, she developed the nodes on her vocal cords and that kind of thing. But she already had that sultry. It was higher register, but it was also very sultry at the same time. So she had, like you say, that little bit of, sort of a velvety voice, in a sense, but sweet, a lot sweeter than, but still had that, that flavor to it. And I mean, again, the songwriting is just incredible. She was always such a great songwriter. That much you have to say about her. I mean, she writes songs that are timeless, that are just absolutely.
I think these were a little less Stevie Nicksy, because she developed that whole persona of the witch, and then kind of laid into that and played.
But at their most basic level,
lyrical content.
You're talking about the demos that she had made, and and I always said nobody makes her sound any better than Lindsey Buckingham does. Like, those two together are, they belong together. They always have, which is a shame. Why all the animosity and all the infighting, and it's drama, it's soap opera at its most, at highest level, but it's part of the thing. It's part of the appeal.
It's very destructive though too. I mean, it was,
I
don't know if that's what kept this from getting its re-release or getting it done. Again, I don't know if it was a rights thing. Maybe it had to do with both of them selling their catalogs. And now that someone else has the rights to it, they were able to get this. I don't know if these recordings were a part of that, because it was, with this, all we know is that it's being re-released or has been re-released by the time you listen to this. So
apparently Lindsey had been he's been lobbying to re-release it for decades. Like, I mean, we're talking, like you said before, like over 20, 30 years now. I mean, this
it's ridiculous. Coming up of like, he was kind of like, I don't understand why. Like, almost like kind of, I'm not stopping it from happening.
I mean, there had to have been, I don't know, maybe if it was a rights issue or not, because there were, I mean, the Stevie Nicks box set, Enchanted, had, that was the only time that you ever heard at least one song from the album in digital form on CD. And I had that box set, and it was, I think it was Races a Run that she put on the set, which was nice. It was like, I thought it was going to be like just a demo or something, or a newer version, but no, it was the actual version from the album. I was very pleased. I was like, oh, finally something, like.
Yeah. And Races a Run is it's a great choice. I mean, I'm surprised it wasn't Frozen Love or Crying in the Night.
Well, probably because that's they both wrote Frozen Love, so that's probably why, so
that's true. And that's an epic song. It's like over 7 minutes. I mean, it really is just a showcase, because it's got some really great guitar work on there. It's got the acoustic guitar, but it's got the electric guitar. It's got their great harmonies on that song as well. I mean, there's a lot to chew on. If this is not a big leap, if you're a Fleetwood Mac fan and this is coming out and you never heard of it, don't worry. This isn't gonna be like some oddity kind of weird thing that they did, and like, what, this is why it never came out. It's like, no, we don't know why this never came out, but we're happy that people are going to, because it is as good as anything that Fleetwood Mac has done. I think, it's just, I think it holds up as a part of the canon. If you put it as a prequel, if you put it as kind of like the Rogue One, right? Like Rogue One would end with like Mick Fleetwood walking into Sound City.
There you go. Yeah.
And then putting the music on, and then it ends like, that's how the Fleetwood Mac Rogue One would end, with Mick Fleetwood going in and listening to and checking out the studio and hearing like their music, and then the movie would end.
Yeah.
That's the Rogue One version of Fleetwood Mac. He's like walking down the aisle. He's like walking down the hall in the studio, and the lights are all like red.
Yeah.
He walks in and the music's playing, and then, and then it goes to black.
There you go. But it's very much in the same vein as of what they were doing on that first record. I mean, it could be the same. They could have written those songs, and they probably did. Like what you're saying, like they just it's just such similar style. It's in fact it's the same style. Monday Morning and songs like that. I mean, those could definitely been a part of that record.
And Crystal got transplanted over, got re-recorded, and which again is another curious thing that probably the first and only time that Lindsey sings a Stevie Nicks penned song.
Yeah.
That she wrote. And it's probably the only time that she wrote a song that she doesn't sing.
Yeah.
The lead on.
And I'm curious to know the story behind that.
Yeah, because I'm like, why would he, obviously he didn't hate her back then or anything, but
they were still together.
He had his own thing going on, and he had his own songwriting and stuff going on, but maybe she wrote it for him or something and wanted him to sing it. But it's interesting to hear Buckingham sing Stevie Nicks style lyrics.
Mm-hmm. In that very high voice too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a high voice to begin with, but on both versions, he really goes up there. So yeah, it's a beautiful song. The only other song I could think of is when she did off of Tango. And what was it? She couldn't even finish the song. Like Lindsey hated her voice was so terrible.
When I See You Again or
whatever? I See You Again. Yeah. And it's like, my goodness, that was, poor,
When I see you again.
And Lindsey at that last verse or that last line, he just sings it alone. He just completely took her vocal out of that. I think they were supposed to be harmonizing there, but I think it was just him, and he kind of saves the song. And then of course there's that beautiful guitar solo at the very end. He just takes it home. But that's what I'm talking about when they have that. That's what I always wanted for them, is to be working together like that, and that's what this album brings, is you really feel the unison,
partnership. Yeah.
The partnership. They're writing songs. They're developing the songs together. They're, they working off each other. And it's just, and how many songs do you know that they co-wrote?
Yeah.
You don't see that either, a lot.
That would end up being Christine McVie. Christine McVie would end up filling that role.
Yeah.
Of collaborator with Lindsey Buckingham, right, and helping her, and because Christine was open to that, like, hey, help, can you help me with this song, or what do you think? And
right,
and as Stevie Nicks became more Stevie Nicks, she needed less and less of that. But on this album, on Buckingham Nicks, it's just the two of them, so they are the leaders of the band. There was no, we're coming into a new situation. It's like this was like the purest representation.
Yeah.
Of what they were, and what Mick Fleetwood heard that made him just make a mental note. Again, he wasn't looking for anything. He wasn't looking for anybody yet, but he just made a mental note. Oh, this guy's a pretty good guitar player, Well,
Stevie Nicks said it several times in interviews and such. I mean, they set their sights high. They dream big. They wanted to be stars.
Yeah.
And that's what they became. That's exactly, and they worked hard at it, whatever, but it's just, but to me, that's where the magic, I wouldn't say ended, because they made great music together still, but it wasn't, it never felt together to me. As a band, you would think that they're all working and building the album up together, and like Rumors, like, in that sense. But after that, it just wasn't like that anymore. And of course, that's because they broke up, and that's understandable. But I just always loved the idea of them, doing something together, instead of cobbling songs together. And I think Lindsey acting as producer, of course, helping to develop other songs musically, with adding his guitar and layering and all that kind of thing. Sure. He was the musical component to that, to their, songwriting and such. So he was always there for them, but they really, dare I say, they really didn't want him. Like after a while, it was just kind of like, Lindsey's great at doing this, but then after a while it just became like, well, there's other people that can replace you and this and that. So it's just, it's sad.
But not really.
No, we, of course, as fans, but just not even, this isn't just, it's a fact. I mean, they've never been able to replace him as a guitar player, as a songwriter, as a singer, like just the energy that he brings, the whole vibe. And it just, I don't know where they got these other people from, like these two guys.
And he's not the most popular member of the group. I dare say Stevie Nicks and Christine McVie are more popular than Lindsey Buckingham.
Oh, absolutely.
Every time he gets taught, they're like, I don't want to go. It's not Fleetwood Mac without him. Like there's something about what he, there's that respect for what he brings, or maybe it's the people that love the drama and they want to see them or see what will happen. But all of that calls back to this album of these two people working, and you also hit it with Stevie Nicks. Right before they got this contract, she was ready just to go back to college. She goes, I'm sick of being poor. I'm sick of not having money. Like, I don't want to, this is not the life I want. So if I need to go to college, if this ain't working out. And then they got the deal with Polydor. And then she said, okay, in an interview, she said, we hit the big time, which you did, right? You got a contract, you got a record, and then you got nothing. Like, there was one place where they were popular, which is in Alabama. For some reason, the DJs were playing the 45 because there were singles released. It just never went anywhere. But in Alabama, they were playing these DJs were playing them at night, and they were getting really popular. And to the point where when they joined Fleetwood Mac, they had to say, well, before we join, we have to do a concert in Alabama as Buckingham Nicks, like because there's such a demand for it that we need to go out there. We need to do a show in Birmingham, wherever it was, in Alabama. Very localized thing that picked up on it, but never went anywhere else. And I guess in 73, I guess, you're right. There was the whole singer-songwriter. You had James Taylor. You had Gordon Lightfoot. You had America. So they should have fit in. They should have fit in nicely because they were different. They were alike enough, but they were also different enough. Because like you said, they had that electric part of it too. So when you listen to like America, you don't really hear electric guitars, but Buckingham and Nicks kind of took that kind of stuff, but then rocked it a little bit. Put that electric, hard rock onto it. And I guess in 73 there was no place for that. I guess. Like it was
kind of a hybrid, wasn't it? I mean, it was just sort of like, and I think that's probably what appealed to maybe places like Alabama, was that sort of like,
or maybe it wasn't enough
rock feel. That sort of, it had like Don't Let Me Down Again. I mean, come on. I mean, that is definitely, that riff is killer. It's like,
is it possible also on a broader basis that it wasn't enough of one thing?
Perhaps.
Like, are you going to be a hard rock album, or are you going to be an acoustic instrumental Django, and Stephanie type thing, or is it going to be this?
That's where I was like, I guess that's what I was kind of hinting at before, with them trying to be maybe a little too artsy with it. A song like Frozen Love and the acoustic number, the instrumentals too. Perhaps people just weren't, digging that half as much as just wanted to hear like good whatever. But it's just, so because you got those heavy rock songs, but then you go to that and it's a little jarring. It's a little not quite as cohesive as it should have been, I guess, in some people's eyes. I'd love it. I don't have a problem with it. I'd like an album that has something different on each track, personally.
Yeah,
I don't, so
does.
Yeah, no doubt. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the mindset was back then, why this was such a failure, why Polydor considered it to be so bad. Had they promoted it, that's all they needed to do, really.
Yeah.
To get them out there, is to, listen to this duo, check these guys out. I mean, I think you'll, whatever.
Yeah,
somebody dug them. Like as you pointed out, Alabama. People in Alabama. All they needed was airplay. All they needed was that.
Yeah, I mean, they were already in LA, right? They were already there.
Yeah,
so they're right. Right for the picking. Which is, again, that's weird. We're going to sign you. We're going to pay for your album, and we're going to put you in a really nice studio and give you really, well-known backing musicians, and then we're just not going to really promote it.
Yeah.
There was supposed to be a billboard that they were going to be on back in 73, and they were part of like the, up and coming roster of Polydor. They were listed there, but nothing beyond that, nothing ever happened. They just kind of like, somebody at Polydor must have thought they saw something like, okay, you know what? This is going to be a dog. We may as well just take the loss on it now.
Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, there's no other reason, right? I mean,
perhaps maybe at that time, music was already changing. The singer-songwriting thing is becoming too rampant. Maybe they just didn't think they were as good, or
it could have been that.
Taylor was selling records.
John. I mean, they were. They were
all. Billy Joel at this point was starting to get big, and
all in that lane.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll never. It's a mystery.
I mean, we could comment on this for sure right now because we know the success that they had. But to think about in the context of listening to this album then, which we obviously didn't. We 73. I mean, just to hear it then, I wonder what we would have said about it had we, at that time, like. Nowadays, like if we went back, oh yeah, I listened to that album all the time. Or this was an obscure, but I loved it. It was like but I can't comment on that.
Yeah,
because we got into it so late. But they were already superstars at this point, so it's easy. All we can do is just assume or not, or just kind of just wonder. And it's frustrating because it's like I want to know because we're such fans, like I want to know, where people were at this time with that.
Yeah, I mean, you had Eagles were getting up and running. Linda Ronstadt with like these Buckingham Nicks like fit in that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Jackson Brown, like these two fit in there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that this album should have sold 1 million copies. They should have at least gotten a second crack at it. Like we've talked about how many dog albums somebody makes, right? And then in the middle of their career, I'm going to use Steve Miller, but I'm not going to say his albums were dogs, but meaning he kind of toiled, right, for many years before Book of Dreams, before he hit, or with the Joker, or even Styx. They were making all this weird proggy stuff, weird, strange things, and it kind of pop up with Lady and then kind of go down. But they were still getting, they were on. Still putting out records, up until Equinox, which didn't have a hit, up until Crystal Ball, which didn't have a hit, really. Like you're getting 7 albums deep here, my friend.
Yeah,
we're not getting anything back from you. These guys get chopped after one. So that was weird because especially back then, right, Eric? I mean, people had contracts. You could even make a case for ELO. You could make a case for Genesis.
That's right.
Of what are we getting in return for this? Where is the hits? When are you guys going to start selling it? Yeah, it's great that you're artsy and you got a following, but what are we going to get out of this? And these two never even got that opportunity.
Yeah.
And maybe it's fortuitous, right? Because of what happened.
It's a good what if. Like
because
what if Mick Fleetwood hadn't. You know what I mean? Like, where would they be?
What if they had gotten a second album?
Yeah.
Right? Because if they had gotten a second album, they might have thought, okay, well, we're, on our way. We don't need any opportunities. But as fate would have it, Bob Welch leaves. Mick Fleetwood says, that guy Lindsey Buckingham played guitar. Let me go ask him. He asks him. He says, yes, but you got to take my girlfriend. What I did find out though, and they were, so Mick Fleetwood was like, okay, well, we got to talk it over with everybody. So he goes back to John McVie and Christine, and they talk it over. But what Mick Fleetwood did is he left the decision up to Christine.
Okay.
Which I just read. It was like it was going to be Christine's decision if she was comfortable having another female in the band. So they met at a Mexican restaurant in Los Angeles, and Stevie Nicks had come right from work. So she was wearing like her work outfit.
Yeah.
And Lindsey was there, and they sat and they kind of had their quote unquote interview. And Christine's like, yeah. And that was, so many things. Like out of the biggest failure probably an artist can have, right, is having your album deleted by the like run out of print. Like they just whatever the initial printing was, that's gotta hurt as an artist, where you think you've made it and you think, oh, I've got a contract, and then to have that cut from under you, and then have this band that's kind of popular but not really. They've had as much problems as anybody else. Approach you, it's like, okay, well, it's not optimal, but it's a gig, and you got to take my girlfriend. And I'm like, okay.
And the rest,
and then the rest is like and the also the side benefit is Keith Olsen and Richard Dashut, like they're working at Sound City. They get on the coke train.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
With Fleetwood Mac, and they become like their throughout actually their whole recording career up through the 80s. It was Keith Olsen, Richard Dashut, and then you had Ken Calais come in also, and that was like that became like the unit. That became like the Fleetwood Mac unit, and that's what Fleetwood Mac was missing. They were missing production. They were missing production values, because their songs aren't horrible, but they just didn't sound very inspired. They kind of just sounded like, they're kind of prodding, but then you get to a song like Say You Love Me on the White Album, and Over My Head. And all of a sudden there's some nuance there, and there's something interesting going on. There's arrangements, there's layers to it, which I think is what not only the producers, but I think Buckingham, obviously with his influences, the Beach Boys and all that kind of stuff, brought into it. And then he was given free reign to bring them to the next level, to really experiment and kind of, expand what Fleetwood Mac could be,
Yeah, he always had the vision. And I dare say, I mean, that was I think that's really where his heart was. I mean, we often talk about how, his solo work was always, I almost consider his solo work to be, just professional demos for Fleetwood Mac. Like he's actually making these songs in the hope that, well, I'm going to be using and he did for a lot of times that was the case, right? I mean, there was, so many times that it became,
everything was a single album, and then it's like, oh, well, we need it for Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah,
it's like, all right,
any chance for that band to reconvene, get back together. I dare say that Lindsey was always ahead of the, like right there in front. Like
he had plenty of material. He came correct. He had material ready.
He had material. He had, he was prepared. He was always thinking about the music. When I dare say they weren't. There were times where Stevie wasn't as into it as. Making after a while, it's just that she's just kind of phoning it in, right? She writes songs, but then, okay, here it is. And then Lindsey would work on
and fix it
up and his arrangements. And then she'd come in, put her vocals down. And that was about how it went, and it's, and again, there's a sadness to that for me. It's like, it's sad that they just,
it's what she was going through too. She was going through all that substance abuse issues as well.
Sure.
It was kind of, wasn't, and she was also, to be fair to her, she was feeling the pull of her solo career. Right. And getting, getting that fame that she wanted in her own right as Stevie Nicks.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it was, I'm not blaming her for it. It's just the idea of working together, as a duo, even within the band, could have been a thing. They could have been as tight as anybody could be.
Yeah, they should have been, right?
And should have been. Yeah.
They did that one song together, Twisted. It was on the soundtrack for Twister.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was what, mid 90s?
Yeah. So any chance that those things happened, we ate that shit up. Yeah. Right? I mean, any song like, what is that? What's going on? Are they getting back to,
Yeah.
always that excitement, right? We always felt like that little bit of excitement that, oh shit, new material. They're working together again. That's really cool. Like they resolve their differences, and it's just like, but it's
that's a good segue. So let's bring it into the 2025 release of the album. Famously, Stevie had Lindsey fired. Supposedly, it's either him or me in Fleetwood Mac. So they said, well, it's going to be him for whatever reason. And then immediately, like Christine said, she regretted that decision. Mick Fleetwood's like, it really wasn't the best thing we did. He ended up suing them for breach of contract. They settled out of court, and then she would just continually drag him. Even now, it's still like dragging this guy, and he's very, kind of turn the other cheek type thing. And then earlier this year, all of a sudden, like people that watch this stuff, I don't know who does it, but they're like, Stevie Nicks is following Lindsey Buckingham on Instagram now. Does that mean that Fleetwood Mac is going to reconvene? And then all of a sudden, like the day later, it's like, Lindsey Buckingham is following Stevie Nicks like on Instagram. Are they like friends? Like what does this mean? Like, and then Stevie Nicks posted one of the lyrics on Instagram, and then Lindsey followed up with completing the lyric to Buckingham Nicks, and then just people lost their shit. Like online, people were just losing their shit. They're like, "Oh my god!" Like this album's finally going to get. I'm sure everybody that's a Mac fan has probably heard it. It's like we're going to get a proper release of it finally. Does this mean? And Mick Fleetwood actually posted something on Instagram too. He's like, "Oh, this is the perfect marriage of da da da." He kind of did a little pre thing too.
Yeah.
Does this mean all is well in Fleetwood Mac land?
I don't know.
Does this mean that there could be a Buckingham Nicks tour with Mick Fleetwood playing?
Maybe. I don't know.
Because
Fleetwood Mac is they're pretty much done.
Yeah, Fleetwood Mac is done. Yeah, but that doesn't mean we can't get an evening with Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. With Mick Fleetwood, and they play the Buckingham Nicks album, then they play some Fleetwood Mac chestnuts.
Yeah.
Would I love to see that? Sure. Lindsey has taken the high road throughout the whole thing. Now, I'm not saying that none of them are innocent in any of this. They all got dirt on their hands.
Lindsey's like, let's face it. The guy's he's a lot to handle.
Yeah. But
he could be an arrogant prick when he wants to be. And but it was always about the music, and he was always about taking it to that higher level and always thinking about what can we do next, and what the rest of the band never seemed to catch up. Like Stevie did her thing. Yeah, she had her own side, but she didn't bring that to Fleetwood Mac. I always felt that she didn't exactly bring that whole persona, like what some of her best songs are written for herself, and like the solo, she's keeping the best for herself. Lindsey, on the other hand, I feel like it's almost, he's writing great material, but always giving it to the band, always giving it and contributing that to the.
Every time you see an interview around one of those albums, he's like, "Well, I was going to do a solo album." They said, "Well, we're going to do a Fleetwood Mac album." So I put that on the back burner and brought the songs over, and most of them were pretty much recorded already, and then they just had to
we can go on and on about this. Because I would love to see him go back and do a little bit of a retread and just release like Gift of Screws as it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Like that would have been amazing.
Yeah,
that would have been his grand his masterpiece for sure.
His smile. It would have been his smile. Absolutely. Yeah. It's out there. It's
much like the Beach Boys, where they divvied it up on different albums. You gotta put that song with that song, and this, it's like.
Well, even on YouTube though, there's a Gift of Screws kind of
reconstruction,
reconstruction, but using like his original recording. So not the stuff that was redone for Fleetwood Mac or for other solo albums, but the original recordings. I'll find a link for it.
But they're not that much different.
No, not very different. No,
I mean, with the Say You Will album, all he really did was Stevie added vocals to the songs, and it was like remixed them, and of course
that was it,
and that was about it. But they were done.
Yeah.
But the point is that the effort was made. I don't feel like
that
she made that conscious effort, to the band in that sense. And maybe it's because of the two, the friction between the two. So getting back to your question as to whether or not this is going to turn into something.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I would hope so. But I don't think so. I think it's just promoting the record, and
I think she has gone too far down the road.
Yeah.
Of dragging him and saying, I'll never work with him again. I'll never share the stage with him again. I'll never da 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 da.
Yeah.
And he's been very, kind of taking the high road about that and be like, I'd love to. Never say never. But she really, at that time, really dug her heels in and said, I'm done with this bastard. Like, it's been too much. But there's so much history that's still going on between them, and he is much more upfront about it, and even now about how difficult this was, even into the 80s. Like this was, and like I told that he wrote "Go Insane" is about Stevie Nicks.
Yeah,
so it was, this was something that, as dramatic as it is, and rock and roll love story, it rippled through the band, and it did have a crippling effect. Because of the lack of resolution, and then the having to be with somebody and having to work with them. And it seems like he was really the heartbroken. It seems like he was more, I'm getting the picture now that he was much more heartbroken over this than she was. Not that she wasn't, but it seems like he was the one that was the guy that got left. He wasn't the leaver. He was the leavee.
To this day, do we really know we never really hear about how it actually went down. Like, I mean, I'm assuming that she's the one that broke it off, right? Like, it was her decision, right? I mean, yeah.
So, I think that, that's going to affect how you work with somebody. Again, and like you always said, we never had time just to deal with that and to kind of, it was always there. So I would love to be a fly on the wall. Like, if they had ever in the 80s, right? Like they had to have regressed at some point. And
yeah, well, you hear stories. I mean, some
one-off something, because that's the only thing that would keep this hurt going on, is kind of doing that and then not, then but not being together.
Yeah.
But if you're in the with the amount of illegal materials they had at their disposal, and just whatever, fuck it, I would bet that they had reconnected in one form or another in the 80s. I would guess. They may not, and it may have been just once or something, but
I'm sure it happened. It had to.
Because that's all she talks about too. She talks about how magnetic it was and how electric and so.
Well, around that time too, with Say You Will, they made that documentary, and they were still, it was very sort of documentary. I mean, you were not since the days of, I think it was the Tusk one. I think you had it. Like, was that an official release or whatever? I don't know, but
yeah, it was about the concert. It was like live footage interspersed with them recording the album.
Yeah. So the same thing here with Say You Will, but they were, you see them fighting, you see them argue. Oh, she's like, Lindsey's like making shitty remarks, and she's getting all pissed off and
over the mixer. Like, I want this guy to mix it. And he's like, I don't like that mix. And
it was, but again, like, I actually was very critical of Lindsey at this point, because he was very emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never seen him that before. Like, he was crying, it was like tears, like, and they're having but it was a nice little moment when they're sitting in the side room there, and she's like comforting him, like she's there for him, and she's setting him straight. She's like, look, I'm all about the art too, but you got a family, and you got, this and that, and we can't be doing this anymore. She's actually making perfect sense, logical sense. And I really,
time to grow up, Lindsey.
They, the point is that they were there they're still there for each other in that sense. Like they, when things go real bad, something happens in their life, like when Lindsey got sick.
Yeah, I hope so.
I
hope so. I hope that
they're there, when it really matters, where it really matters. Maybe not musically, but
Yeah, I hope their relationship can survive this. And maybe this is a step in that direction. Maybe, them looking back 42 years.
Yeah.
And trying to remember where this came from. Maybe going through this process of maybe, I'm sure they had to listen to the mixes and do all this. Maybe not, obviously not together, but maybe there's maybe time literally, can reach back and maybe heal or soothe some of the wounds, even if we never get another tour, just to just at this point, like. Yeah. Release, I'm not trying to blame her, but she's really the only one with the animosity. At this point, she's the one that's just kind of like always like dragging the guy. But hopefully she can exercise some of those demons as well and kind of at least be at peace with it. Again, not saying that they got to go tour and they got to do everything, but at least kind of,
But this is a step in the right direction, though.
Yeah, let's try and work on saving the legacy and not let the legacy be the stories and all that. So,
and why not go right back to the beginning? Right?
Where it all started, and that's the great thing about this album is for people that haven't heard it. It sounds, again, it doesn't sound very dated because it was so well produced that it's a joy to listen to. So like for that, it's not a dated like, oh, this sounds like the 60s or it sounds like psychedelic. It doesn't. It's beautiful. It's got the early makings of that the California sound. All the major players are there. All the usual suspects are there. So we've got nothing but love for this album, and hopefully with the re-release that more and more people are gonna pick up on it. And like I said, everything old is new again. There are people that are going to hear this and be like, oh my God, wow, this is pretty amazing.
I'm sure
they were formidable in their own right, but it took a stroke of luck to propel them and give them, like, it's like literally like winning the lottery, right?
Yeah.
Like, you get dropped by your label and then you get a call from this guy. Hey, you want to join our band?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, cool. We'll do it. I got to take my girlfriend though. What? Take your girlfriend? Take her where? So I think that's...
Well, that's a whole nother story in itself, which
that would come to pass.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll leave the sordid love life of Stevie Nicks. There's a lot there. So anyway, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Go check out Buckingham Nicks. It's out in multiple different formats, but in September 19th, I believe, it's going to be officially re-released. So you can listen to it, download it in all its glory. It'll be available on CD, digital. So I have the original LP, so I'll probably just pick up the CD just so I can have I'd like to hear a nice crisp recording of that. And I think that's going to do it, Eric, right? We talked about, all the songs are keepers, so I don't think we need to do top tracks because everything is just it's just a great listen. It flows nicely. And like Eric said, there's a lot of different styles and textures on there for you to pick up on, but you absolutely will hear the seeds of Fleetwood Mac in there. It is, it's like you got your chocolate in my peanut butter and you got your peanut butter in my chocolate.
They informed the sound of Fleetwood Mac going forward based on this record. This is what Fleetwood Mac became.
Yeah, it was just kind of like insert tab A into slot B.
Yeah,
and you inserted like these two members into the band, and now it's like, okay, it's Fleetwood Mac now. Here's something different energy. All the energy that is in the first two albums is in this album as well. That's I think the most important thing is, the energy from the White Album and Rumors is evident, and the hunger is evident in the Buckingham Nicks album. So go check that out. Right.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's
well said.
Yeah, I did say it well. If you're still with us, but if you want to reach out to us, you can contact us right through your podcast provider app. There's a little thing that says fan mail or contact us. We cannot respond to that, but we'd love to hear from you. Actually, we just got some fan mail, Eric. from someone from our top 5 sad songs. They sent us fan mail through the app, and they gave us their picks. So I added it to our YouTube playlist. So
that's fantastic.
The fan mail works. It's just we can't respond. So if you're listening to us now and you're the person that sent in your picks via fan mail, thank you very much, because we've added it, and it was great. It was River by Joni Mitchell. It was Angel by Sarah McLachlan. I mean, this is like tearjerker.
River, I had River on my list.
Yeah, it was like this is like tearjerker heaven. Anyway, so we thank you. We appreciate you. But if you want to engage with us, where we can go back and forth, you can hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. Any one of those will give you a direct line to us, and we can discuss the Buckingham Nicks or discuss any other music topics you like. We love to talk music, so that's why we do this. So I think that's going to do it until we meet again, right?
Yep.
So for Eric, this has been Dean. We'll catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.